The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hoop Ballers! Welcome back to another edition, another episode of Today in Sports Betting. I am Devin Ellington, DALE007 on Twitter. This is a Hoop Ball presentation, hoop-ball.com. Hoop Ball Gaming is this division. Again, I'm Devin Ellington. Got a great show today. Going to get into some NL and ALCS action. I've got John back on the show. Before we unpack all of it, though, I will say I need to talk about our sponsor, because without them, well, we wouldn't be able to do this. And that's Manscaped. You can use HoopBall20, HOOPBALL20, as a promo code when you go over to Manscaped and check out their Lawnmower 3.0 that just came out. Full electric waterproof technology, smooth gliding. I would recommend it. I'm sure everyone that uses it would recommend it. HoopBall20 is the promo code, HOOPBALL20. It'll get you 20% off and free shipping. So that's a pretty nice bargain there. All right, without further ado, I want to go ahead and get Mr. Ryan in here again, introduce him, and then we'll start rambling for you guys. Mr. John, how's it going, boss?
I'm doing well, Devin. How's it been for you?
You know, all right, so I don't like to brag a lot. You know, I'm pretty laid back, but I had a 3-0 night last night.
Awesome.
I took a couple first five bets with the Braves because, you know, Kershaw went out and Gonsolin. He's Gonzo-lin. So, and yeah, so I took them first five on the run and money line, comboed that, and then the over in the football game. So that was pretty nice.
Yeah, that was easy.
Yeah, it was. I had a weird feeling probably 40 minutes before kickoff, and I had the Titans money line selected in my bet slip, and I said nah at the last minute, and I took it off. So I'm kind of hitting myself over that one. That would have been a real nice night. But other than that, looking forward to this week. Got a lot of great stuff to unpack as far as college football, NFL. Lots of line movements already. I think some historical stuff. I saw you put some things out about the Steelers and the Browns rivalry. So, you know, we can talk about that tweet that I am mentioning later on.
Sure.
But first, let's start with some baseball. Let's get into these pitching matchups. You want to start NL or AL first?
Your call. Let's do the 6:05 game.
Sure.
Eastern Standard Time, of course.
Yep. All right. So we are going to talk about the hold on, got data loading here. We're going to talk about the NLCS first, guys. So the Dodgers taking on the Braves. Urias, the lefty, 3.27 ERA, going for the Dodgers. And then you got Kyle, I believe his first name, Kyle Wright, the righty, 2-4, 5.21 ERA on the year. Braves up 2-0. I don't see him getting up to a 3-0 lead. Urias has been great in the postseason. He's a lefty. The Braves have holes in their bats at times against lefties. What do you say, John?
I definitely agree with that. You know, by comparison, it's incredible that the Rays are off to a 3-0 lead in their series. And that, of course, is all but done. It's just a question of whether it's going to be a sweep or in 5. But in this game, it's been amazing how great the Braves pitching has been. I guess the ERA as a team is 0.84. Usually in the playoffs, you get one starter that's going off and, you know, Kershaw type or maybe not Kershaw in the playoffs. He historically hasn't been that good, but this year he is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's having the back spasms and he can't make the start just yet. But that could actually be a silver lining for them if they can win this game
Mm-hmm.
and then bring him back. Even if he pitches one game in the series, you almost have to count that as a win.
Right.
The way he's going. But your point about Urias is and I never say his name right. Urias.
Urias. Yeah.
Or like curious without the C.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I have problems with names sometimes, and sometimes I get reminded that I didn't pronounce the name quite right, and I'm actually talking about somebody else. But anyway, that, it comes with maturity.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Urias is an excellent pitcher, as you mentioned. Hitters are only barreling him up at 5% rates. And that means, if you're not familiar with baseball, that's getting the ball in that very small sweet zone on the bat where the ball can come off at exit velocities of 110 miles an hour. Solid hits are also 5%.
Wow.
For Urias. Looking at his actual pitches here, bring up the speeds first.
So I'm guessing he's got low exit velocity also.
Yep, he does. His exit velocity is 87.
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty good. Interesting enough, Kyle Wright, I'm looking at the board here of my machine, and the only good metric coming up for him right now is exit velocity, which is the same, 87.1.
Wow.
That's pretty amazing.
His contact rate is just, and the types of contact that he allows is just scary for me. But those are good metric points there. It's always good to get a deep scrub of data. Do you have anything other than some numbers on this, or is there a size? I mean, obviously the Los Angeles side is going to be the way to go. I'm maybe looking at shrinking it like I like to in the postseason. Take a first five, maybe I'll find it right now, but first five Dodgers on the run line, minus 135, minus 140, and then possibly under 5. Right now I'm showing it at plus 105 for the first 5.
That's good. I like that idea.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on your brain?
Just the one thing I was going to mention, you mentioned the hard hit percentage is very good for Urias at 28%. And by comparison, Kyle Wright is 38%, which is not good.
Right. His league average is right about 30-ish, right?
Yeah, 33, I think,
33.
is the league average. So, it's you never want to say it's a lock. I hate that word.
Right.
Because strange things can happen, and strange things have happened in 2020 across every single sports we've been watching. I was actually watching the Braves last night, and I thought, oh, well, that's good. The Dodgers will play the next 2 at home. And then I caught myself, it's just so easy to think, because you hear fans in the stands, you see them, and you forget that they're in Arlington.
Right.
But with this game here, the Dodgers are on a pretty good betting system here, 65% over the last 20 years, 64 and 30. Actually, that's a 69% win rate. And this goes against Atlanta. So you're going against teams that are good National League offensive teams scoring at least 5 runs per game. And they're playing against a team with a very good bullpen of an ERA of 3.50 or lower in the month of October. So that I use the month because the playoffs sometimes don't coincide with exactly the end of September and the beginning of October. So that takes away that historical, problem child. Some seasons go into October. You don't want to include it.
Sure.
But anyway, that's a pretty good one. And the Dodgers, led the league with 5.8 runs per game this year.
Wow.
And for them to be looking the way they do and not scoring, one of these games are just going to explode.
Right.
There's a lot of historical examples of this. I can't tell you for sure it's going to be tonight. I think it's going to be tonight. And I think they'll still win the series.
Sure.
So you could get a really good series price right now being down 0-2, kind of what I did with the Miami Heat, after being down 0-2, and
Yep.
that didn't work out. But hopefully this one would.
Sure. That's a good call on your end. I actually forgot to check out series prices today. So moving on to the AL side of the things, Tampa Bay up 3-0. They're going for the sweep against the Stros tonight. Got Greinke on the mound. You got Glasnow on the mound. Both righties. And my first thoughts on this one was taking a stab at the first 5 for Tampa Bay. You've seen a lot of shakiness from Greinke in the first 5 innings of these ball games pretty much all year. So lots of money, what I'm seeing is on Houston, though. 86% of the money for the game tonight are on them. Talk me into something here. Kevin Kiermaier's questionable, so that's something to keep an eye on. What do you think on this one?
Well, it's interesting that the bullpens overall have been fairly even. Tampa Bay has an edge in that category with a 2.91 ERA, 1.34 WHIP. They're 5 for 5 in save opportunities. They're 8-2 in the playoffs, and I referenced them. Retweeted someone I can't remember, but retweeted something about Tampa Bay being the Moneyball team of the East.
Mm-hmm.
And it must have been a tweet about Billy Beane, moving on to his new career and associated with John Henry and the Boston Red Sox. So in this case, the Rays just seem to have the magic going this year. I think they win the World Series if I had to pick one among these 4 teams. And I know that goes against the Dodgers if they really get their offensive act together. But they just seem to be a team of destiny right now. And being up 3-0 against a pretty darn good Houston team right now that's playing, they're kicking on all cylinders right now. And they're making an easy time of it.
Yeah.
I just love how they play. Fundamentally sound across the board. They're not afraid to hit behind a runner, which seems to be a cardinal sin now in Major League Baseball. And it's playoff action. If they put a shift on you, I know, speaking of myself, I would do everything in my power, especially with runners on base, first and second. And I'm a right-handed batter, and they know I'm a pull hitter. I would do everything in my power to shoot one through the right side.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and I'm sure you would too. I mean, there's nothing embarrassing about that. But apparently, at the MLB level, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. I think it's a obvious defensive hitting mechanism that used to work a lot in the 70s and 80s. So I don't understand. I don't know. They just, I guess people like home double plays. It's that because that's usually the end result most of the time on those things. But I was looking at some first 5 numbers. We talked about Greinke being shaky a little bit in the first 5 here recently. I'm looking at, Tampa Bay's got some major juice on the money line at -150. So I'm staying away from that. But for -115 or right around -110, over under 4.5 is the first 5 mark. Do you have an opinion on the total, full game or first 5 in this?
It's hard to call with Glasnow pitching. And isn't he fun to watch? I mean, nothing better than watching 5 pitches in a row at 100 or 101. It's just insane. The total's a tough call. I think this is with all due respect to a Hall of Famer in Greinke, it's a mismatch. I just think Tyler Glasnow is going to go at least 4. And then their bullpen is solid across the board. And they do have most everybody available for the game tonight, although they've played, this will be the 4th game in a row. At the same time, I've seen Greinke pitch live. I've seen him give up. This one particular game, he had a league-leading ERA, and this is the a very hot day in August. Gave up 7 runs in the first inning. He comes up to bat in the third and hits a grand slam. And that was with the Dodgers, and they went on to win that game. I guess it was like 11-9 slugfest. So Greinke is an athlete. He's not afraid to swing the bat either.
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular case, he will not be swinging.
Got that universal DH rule now, so everybody gets a good old DH. So not a lot of fun pitchers that used to swing the bat get to do it anymore, which kind of stinks.
I think if you're playing the field, you should bat.
Yeah.
They do that in the college level too. They have a hitter for the pitcher, and most times, like I guess the exception would be the SEC conference, where the pitcher actually, the coach is smart enough to let that kid hit because the kid's a great athlete.
Yeah. But
everywhere else, it's like, oh, you're a pitcher, well then you're not hitting.
Right.
I never understood that either.
Yeah.
Glasnow's been averaging 97 on a 4-seamer. And now, we saw him in that last start, 5 pitches at 101, which was, I believe that was the all-time record for most pitches in an appearance. His changeup is 91, which I know I couldn't even catch up to because you can't tell. It comes out of the same arm slot. And then he throws that curveball that just, I wouldn't be able to stand in the box with him.
Yeah, not a lot of professionals. Yeah, I was say not a lot of professionals really do. I mean, he's filthy. He really is. He's very exciting to watch. And like you said, he's just got that deceiving pitch look from the same arm angle, arm slot. He's deceptive. He's got that velocity. Before we move on to football, did you have anything else on this game in particular?
My lean right now would be on the Rays for the game. I like you. I think you mentioned the idea of doing the first 5 on the Rays. So that makes sense to me too. A lot of these older pitchers have a history of getting. If you're going to get to them, it's in the first inning. Greg Maddux was a perfect example of that. If you didn't get to him, you weren't going to get to him.
Yeah.
But Greinke is at the tail end of his career. So I don't see any other side here. In fact, I would even be tempted to play the Rays on the run line for some added profit on it if they win. But anyway, that's my take on it.
Yeah. Looking forward to this. Hopefully the Rays win for my sake because I've got them to win the pennant and then I've got them to win the World Series. So
they're be good.
They're the last of my futures tickets, honestly. I think actually I have them and then I got the Dodgers on one side just because it was the chalk to take. So that's not looking so good right now either. But before we move on to football, I'm just going to go ahead and give a shout out to our next sponsor, and that's mybookie.ag. They are a great online mobile platform based sportsbook, and use promo code hoopball, HOOPBALL. You're going to get a nice deposit bonus, 100% match. Mybookie.ag. We use them. They have great lines that come out very quickly. They got blackjack. That's very fun. I've been playing with that a lot actually this week. They got free tournaments that you can win real money in. So head over to mybookie.ag. Use the free money to, use on some of these football bets that are about to be talked about or whatever you want. So hoopball was the promo code, HOOPBALL. So talk about a few NFL games here. John was thinking about, and Ira brought this one up, so I can't steal the, credit. And then also, guys, just a reminder where to find all of us on Twitter is, so John is at John Ryan Sports and then the number 1. So John Ryan Sports 1 on Twitter. Ira's going to be at Ira Silver Magic, and then I am at DALE007, and all of us is, we're at Hoopball Gaming also. That's the 4 money spots you'll find us. But yeah, back to this Bengals line. It opened at 9.5 on the road against the Colts, and now it's down to +8, over under 46.5. I wanted to see what you were thinking in regards to this. I feel like 8 is just astronomical to ask for the Colts right now, considering they can't score the ball at all. Sure, they're getting Trey Burton back this week, but, I think the recent game against the Ravens has skewed the market's perception for the Bengals. They didn't play that great on the road against a really good Ravens team who's Super Bowl bound is, their aspirations. So I think the Bengals are unnecessarily getting a lot of points here, but I like it. I think this is a spot for Joe Burrow to come out and beat one of the, aging greats of the league and see him out of the league.
Give him the infamous ushering out of your current job position.
Yeah.
I agree with your points. I'm actually pulling up a couple team stats here too for the rankings.
And Cincinnati is, +300 on the money line, so
that's pretty sweet.
That's a nice little sprinkle, in my opinion.
And you said the line moved
from 9.5
down to 8. So that, looking at the data that I collect from the 20 sports books, we have. Yeah, I'm seeing the exact same thing. And for the percentages, which I think is a really good starting point for handicapping NFL especially, we're seeing 60% of the tickets, which is approaching 1,000 betting tickets at the 20 combined sports books. And 78% of the money is on Cincinnati.
Yeah, wow.
So that shows that I call it the pros and Joes. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but the Joes are the public bettor, and the pros are obviously the larger professional bettor. They're both on the same side here, but it's not in what I call an irrational exuberance, where everybody in the world thinks that Cincinnati positively can't cover this spread.
Sure.
When you get extremes like that, that's a contrarian indicator, and you generally would take the other team. You want to be on the book side as often as possible, but there are plays that come out of my models that are not. And the public wins once in a while, otherwise nobody would bet.
Right.
But the casinos do make money every single season.
Yeah, lots
so
of
this,
it.
There's a couple systems here too. What I've been doing is collecting the percentage of bets made and the money at the close. So in other words, in the last half hour before the game starts, I would be able to look at it and use these systems to give out a recommendation or to confirm my own bets that are already released. So in this particular case, these are Road Warriors. The game is played during the regular season. The team is on a 2-game or more losing streak. The team's previous margin was a loss. And the spread from open to close is less than 6 points of movement. So We've had 2.5 points so far, I believe. So that matches it. And then it gets even better when it's a conference game. So this is hit at about 65% over the last 10 years, 102 wins, 56 losses, and 4 pushes. So this is a pretty good one. It gives an ROI, which is, I use that because I think it's meaningful, and it also comes from my Wall Street days, but return on investment, 24%.
Oh, wow.
So that's getting up there.
Yeah.
So that would favor the Bengals here in this game based on those parameters.
Yeah. Well, I like those numbers. So if you got more great nuggets, continue. I like hearing this because I like this spread even more now.
Yeah, it helped. It helps me too. To you start reasoning it through, and you go, okay, well, it's logical. It's
Sure.
not. You get beyond the gut feeling bet.
Mm.
Because I'm this fan and I love this team. Um, which you're going to have a lot in college football with Georgia and Alabama. By the way, that surely will be a slugfest.
Yeah. Yeah.
A game I'm looking forward to. But on the football side of the equation here, in terms of yards per play offensively, Green Bay is head and shoulders above the rest of the NFL, averaging 6.8 yards per play. And Cincinnati is down the list here a little bit. They're actually 30th. That's much lower than I thought, 4.6. But not as bad as the Jets or the Washington football team, which is dead last with 4.2. That's it. That's interesting. It must be they dropped down because of this last game, I believe.
Yeah, that
which you could
would make a lot of sense. Just because, I mean, what he had maybe 150 passing yards, I think it was 183.
Yeah,
it was a rough game. I mean, that, and Baltimore's Baltimore. But if you look at it before that too, I mean, how involved Mixon is and was and has been and will be. He's a great weapon for Joe Burrow, and they've been meshing really, really well on the field together. They just ran in the buzzsaw of the Ravens, but I think they got a good shot here going against that dead arm of Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts are ranking 21st.
Sure.
So they're not that much better. And everybody talked about the Colts defense preseason, that this was going to be a defense you need to watch, and how great they were going to be. And with all due respect, I haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the defensive stats here quick. We have time for that. Let's see. Team defense. Of course, the Ravens are tied for first with their division foe Steelers, so that'll be a good matchup down the road.
Yeah.
The Colts are third at 4.7, so that in yards per pass, they're okay. They've generated 9 turnovers. That ranks fourth. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that they've been solid, but there are obvious holes in their defense.
Yeah.
That can be exploited, especially by a guy as smart as Burrow. And he's a rookie, and I'm almost watching him now like he's a third-year pro.
Right.
With the exception of that last game, which you can just draw a line through as a, okay, well, we'll give him a pass on that one and look for him to come back.
Right. Yeah.
So I think taking the points here is it's just too many.
The point about Joe Burrow and then the Indianapolis defense is really nice because, like I said, I mean, I've said it for a couple weeks now, so it's not like I'm saying anything new, but having Malik Hooker out is huge, and I think it's gonna steadily just be more and more of a burden not having him on the back end. And just pivoting over to another divisional, or I guess that wasn't divisional, but to a divisional game. The Browns and the Steelers are going to be playing each other. Noon kickoff on Sunday. Over-under's 51 right now. It opened at plus 5.5 to the Browns, who are on the road. Now it's down to 3.5. So I think if you liked the Browns, it was probably best to get them a little early.
I agree with that for sure.
Now with that being said, it's, I'm seeing 58% bet percentage and 61% money percentage on Pittsburgh, but 58% bet percentage on Cleveland. So say what you want about that, use that as you will. Man, the only thing that I'm leaning here so far in early is the under 51. You shared a tweet. I'm not sure if you know exactly which tweet I'm speaking of, but I saw it was one of the first things I read this morning. And it was talking about the historical data between these two teams and the total being set at a certain number. And I liked what I read. And, I was honestly surprised this was set at 50 between these two teams. Like you talked about, that Steelers defense is one of the best in the league, right there with Baltimore's. They're healthy. And then you also got Cleveland, who I think, after that game with Dallas, they've been in some shootouts, but I think their numbers are inflated for what they actually present as a defense. So,
Yeah, that tweet, if I remember right, was this is the highest total between this rivalry since 1990. Yeah. And I took different queries. What's the under record when it was 44 points or higher? I think it was 6-2. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it was 6-2. So not many games, but then again, you're talking about historical matchups here that have been dominated by defenses. So I dropped it down to 39.5 and higher and came up with 17-9 to the under. So sometimes you think inherently you see an all-time record total, like in college football when we started seeing totals lined at 82 points. You initially want to bet the under, right? But sometimes when it's not insanely high, in the NFL nowadays, 50 is 3/4 of football for the most part. So when I first heard it, and it was on the Bang the Book podcast, it was my good friend Adam Burke and Brian Blessing were talking about it. So when I listened to them, I kind of just take it one step further. They mentioned that it was the highest ever. So I thought to myself, what happens next? And that's kind of how I think with these things. So the under would definitely go to the Cleveland side of this equation. And there are several systems that support Cleveland in this. I'm going to bring up one right here. And this is a money line one. So it's very simple. And it has to do with scoring, which is what we want, right? So 32-11 for 74% over the last 5 seasons. Play on any team using the money line after 4 straight games where 50 or more total points were scored. So that, to me, that's simple. The parameters have a very high p-value. Mm-hmm. It's a statistical thing that goes above and beyond what everybody's heard about the z-score. So the p-value gives you a reading of how well your parameters correlate to one another. Like, are they meaningful? An example of non-meaningful would be the Green Bay Packers are 5-0 on Saturdays. Mm-hmm. That has no meaning whatsoever. But this one, 4 straight games, 50 total points or more were scored in those games, and you're going to play the money line. Again, like I think I should run this through after we're done here, and then I can tweet it out there what this record is when it's an underdog.
Sure.
Because this one involves favorites too, but it's still. Well, it's averaged a plus 112 wager.
Gotcha.
So the majority of these plays have to be underdogs, which is going to make it even better.
And right
the percentage might come down, but the units won and the ROI will go up a lot.
Sure. And I'm seeing plus 165 for Cleveland right now on the money line. So
it's gone 19-6 the last 3 seasons, making 16.4. Units per unit bet. So right there, that tells you 19-6 against the spread would be roughly 1,200 or 12 units of profit. And here, by playing the money line, you get an extra 3 units of profit. So this is eye-opening here.
So I think I'm going to be Browns heavy this weekend. I'm going to probably go Browns spread, Browns money line, and maybe Browns money line and then the under. That's really eye-opening. I was looking at some team totals, and right now Pittsburgh's is at 27.5. I was thinking about taking the under on that. I'm getting, I'm seeing minus 105, getting that nickel juice. But I like the hook. 28 points would like you said, 50 points can be 3/4 of football these days. But with what we have in front of us, what we're seeing, and like you said, the equation is in favor of the Browns side of the algorithm. So with that being said, it's got to be not in favor of the Steelers. So, if we're going to see points disappear, why not off of this high team total? So,
Yep, I agree completely.
Yeah, interesting game. I'm glad we unpacked that one. Man, I'm excited for that one this weekend now. I'm gonna pick a random game here, John. I want to see if you
Okay.
have some ideas and opinions on it, just because maybe I'm trying to do a little bit of the same. I want to see how you feel about Arizona and Dallas with Andy Dalton coming in. It's obviously a downgrade in certain dynamics of quarterbacking, but um, is it going to be a detriment? Is I guess what I'm trying to figure out. And now there was a key guy on defense that the Cowboys could be getting back, and that's Van Der Esch.
Yep.
Right now it's -2.5 Arizona, so you got +2.5 to the Cowboys as the home dog. Over unders at 54.5. +120 on the money line for the Cowboys. Right now, bet and money percentage for the spread is coming in on the Arizona favorable side, and then the total 92% of the money to the over, and actually 57% of the money line bets on the Cardinals. So a lot of confidence in the Cardinals. Am I crazy for liking the Cowboys, and did I miss my best number with them early on with the 3?
That's a great question, Devin. This is a tough game to handicap, and I just happened to be watching that game when that injury happened, and that was, I don't even know what the words are. It was just so upsetting to see a guy that's worked so hard to get to the point where he's at. He had the negotiations with the contract go stale. He's working for a long-term contract, and then lightning hits the what, and that happens to him. I mean, it just, in my opinion, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy in the NFL right now.
Right.
But he'll be back from what they say, and that's great news. And when Dalton came in, I didn't even know who the backup was for Dallas. I actually had to look it up, but maybe that isn't common knowledge either. But Dalton has had a pretty good career, and he has the experience to lead this team. What I don't know is how strong his arm is. What we do know is Dallas was leading the league with 240 offensive pass plays. They were second in pass plays going short right. Mm-hmm. Which Cincinnati, going back to our previous pick, they lead the league in that direction with that type of pass. You can't replace what Prescott has done.
Yeah. His leadership alone. But one point I want to make about Andy Dalton, and the light bulb kind of just came on here for me as we've been talking about it. This is probably the best crop of weapons he has around him, from wide receiver 1 down to wide receiver 3 or 4 to his tight end, to the backfield. So I think they're probably going to rely and lean on Zeke a little bit more. He'll probably see an uptick of 5 to 7 more carries at least, would be my guess, probably early in the game as well as late. But if the leadership qualities, and if he gets his guys believing in him and whatnot, and he gets their respect, because that's what it takes as the quarterback. You have to be confident, and you have to get your guys on your level, or sometimes go to theirs, depending on how good of a leader you are. And I think Andy Dalton can do that. He's been successful in the league. He's been to the playoffs, and I mean, he obviously just couldn't get over the hump with the coaching and the Bengals, but I think he's capable, and I think the Cowboys can maybe win this game against an inexperienced, young overall franchise other than Larry Fitzgerald, Kingsbury even. So,
I like that. It's just thinking of some target numbers, for Dalton to take advantage of, and I first started with Ezekiel Elliott, who, as you said, is going to have to carry a little bit more of the load. But I don't think with Dalton they have to go to a run first type of offense.
Right.
I'm assuming that he has a strong arm yet, and if it's not as strong as we think it might be, then they'll adjust the play pattern accordingly. But this is where Arizona's defense, though, can bring the house in that first series and give them the test of, right then and there.
Yeah.
And if they pressure them all day long, then it's, the safeties are going to keep creeping up, and then that makes it worse for Elliott to be able to run. But in the rushing attempts in the red zone this year, he's had 22 carries, 6 touchdowns, and that's a 73% conversion.
Wow.
Which is very high. So there, I mean, you and I could hand the ball off to him more than likely, and they're not asking Dalton to do too much. So I think that that offensive line has to definitely rise to the occasion here to help offset the loss of Prescott.
Yeah.
But there's
speaking
no reason why the Cardinals aren't favored.
Right.
Dallas hasn't played well with Prescott on a win-loss basis.
Right. Speaking of losses, Chandler Jones, I forgot, he's out for the season for that Cardinals defense. He tore his biceps this last game. So I expect Isaiah Simmons, I believe it is, the rookie out of Clemson they took, the multi-position guy. Yeah. He'll probably get some roam and some run. He was getting an uptick in snap count and whatnot, but now I think he's definitely going to be in there all over the place as, all types of roles. So he's like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, it might not be much of a drop off either.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he is comparable to Chandler Jones. I mean, that's I think that's kind of why they did that, so they can maybe have one of each on each side of the field playing defense. Was there any other NFL games that stuck out to you that you had some points on before we move into the collegiate side for a couple?
I guess the Baltimore Eagles matchup is kind of interesting here. I heard talk that they're going to have a certain number of fans in the stadium at the Link, as it's called in Philadelphia. And I said it last week. I said it tongue in cheek, of course, but I almost hope that that isn't allowed with the Eagles' record right now and the way they're playing, especially last week's blowout again, when it looked like they were coming back, and then they ended up losing because of mistakes. And it was a great comeback, but they're not on the same page on any part of the units at all. But here, as a home dog, getting 8 is what I'm seeing right now. That kind of caught me because the world is going to be taking the Ravens. The public better is going to be taking the Ravens. And that's logical. So this would be more of a contrarian pick on the Eagles. It's similar to that 49ers game where the whole world was on the 49ers, including myself. And I was wrong. But Eagles can't be that bad, are they? They're home dog.
Yeah, they're actually getting some young emergence out of their wide receiving core from some really random guys. Let me find this cat's name. But the ones off the top of my head, I do know that Greg Ward is out there catching passes. Yep. Zach Ertz has gone completely ghost mode. I don't know if he forgot how to play football, if every defender, if he's got 3 or 4 guys, if they're scheming the zones to the tight end and the underneath, or what's going on there, because he had 2 targets this week, 1 target maybe, I think it was, and like 6 yards. So it's very, very worrying if your tight end's doing that, especially a guy like Zach Ertz. So the kid I was trying to think of was this Travis Fulgham guy. Yeah. So he was getting some, run and reps recently, before, in the San Francisco game, he only had 3 targets, 2 receptions for 57 yards and a touchdown. But then he went ahead and did what he did against Pittsburgh. He had 13 targets, 10 receptions, 152 yards, and a score. I don't really know who this kid is. I can't remember where he played college ball. Old Dominion.
Wow.
6'2", 215 pounds. So, yeah, they got a converted quarterback in Greg Ward out of Houston, playing wide receiver in the slot mainly. Then they got this Travis Fulgham kid going deep. They're going to get Alshon Jeffrey back soon. I don't think this week. But 8's a lot, like you said. And I'm probably going to go ahead and take that now that you brought it up.
It's gonna be interesting to see how that goes, especially with fans in the stands, and we all know how that environment can go one way or the other. It's polarizing to say the least. You know, they're the greatest fans in the world when the team is performing well, and then if things don't go quite right, it can get pretty nasty. You know, looking at the passing here with Zach Ertz, I think unfortunately, he knows he's on the way out. And it's because of the problems that the front office should be held accountable for in terms of the luxury tax that they're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
And, you know, getting rid of him with, and it's not that much salary. I think he makes $4.5 million a year. But I think that's why he has gone ghost mode, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he said right before the season started, when they weren't going to renew or renegotiate the contract, that he expected to, spend his whole year or his whole career in Philly, and it's unfortunate that it's not going to happen.
Ooh, yeah.
So that came across as him sour grapes that he doesn't have the long-term contract. But then, upon further review, you learn that because of these mistakes of the front office, he's the one that's going to get, penalized and have to move on. So it's kind of a shame. And Desean Jackson is ghost mode too. I know he's had a problem with the hamstring for most of his recent career.
Yeah.
But so many times he's listed as not at practice because the coach gave him rest.
Right.
I don't get that. I just don't get that. On the positive side, John Hightower is another one of those young guys. And Quez Watkins came off the injured reserve last week. I don't know if he played, but he is a speed merchant. He's one of those guys they drafted this past year along with Rager.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love Rager.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking at the Eagles team, they're struggling right now. But as long as, the media doesn't cause a mutiny of the franchise, then you're going to draw a line for this season and then move on, because the talented wide receiver they have is remarkably good.
Well, and their health, they started the season down, a former first round pick and Andre Dillard, Marquise Goodwin, who they signed in the offseason, went on IR, Deshaun Hall on the defensive line, Isaac Samalu, also went on the IR very early in the year. Brandon Brooks, now Jason Peters. It just goes on and on. Vinny Curry's on the IR now. Avonta Maddox is questionable. Obviously, Alshon Jeffrey has that Lestrange, issue. Lane Johnson's been on and off the injury. It's on and on and on. Fletcher Cox, Will Parks. These are all guys that are currently on their injury report right now. So, on top of probably 10 other names I didn't even mention.
Yeah, they're a mash unit.
Yeah.
It's hard to plug that many holes when you're bringing practice squad players in to play wide receiver.
Yeah.
And granted, they're good athletes, and honestly, that game in San Francisco, they played with more intensity and enthusiasm than the starters that were out.
Yeah.
But Greg Ward actually has the most targets in red zone this year. So right then and there, he's only played 2 games, I think.
Yeah.
And he only has 4 targets, and that leads the team. So it's just hard to expect more at this point.
Right.
But if there was ever a time that they could pull off a miracle type game, this could be it.
They're in a good spot to win that division still. And so are the Giants
Yeah.
that are winless. They're only I think a game and a half out with no wins.
Yeah.
Gonna do a quick pivot to college football and talk a couple of these, and then we'll kind of close up shop here. I'm gonna start with a random one here, and I just kind of started digging into this game, started liking what I saw. I'm gonna talk about Florida International and Charlotte taking on each other. Charlotte's at home; they're a touchdown favorite. It opened at 6.5. Over-unders dropped 4 points from 57.5 down to 53.5. If you listened to the podcast last week, you heard me give Charlotte out -3 against North Texas. They ended up winning by like 20, I think. Again, I just really like this Charlotte team in this spot. For starters, I will say both teams are at full strength, so there's no issues as far as injuries right now, but that's always something that's worth keeping an eye on, especially in this day and age. But Charlotte averages 100 plus more yards per game than their opponents, than FIU specifically in this one. And then I feel Charlotte's passing success will continue. Right now, they're at 9 yards per play. Charlotte also has a good chance at controlling the game through their time of possession. But if the Panthers want to win, they're going to have to be ahead after either the first quarter or the first half, because Charlotte, once they lock in, it's hard to move them. And they have to clean up their sack percentage, the Panthers do. Right now, they give up sacks at 19.64% of the time. That's a big number.
It is.
I like both teams for the simple fact that they're successful within the red zone. So we got some chances at some points in this one in some meaningful spots. But I'm looking for Charlotte to be better equipped to stop their opponent from reaching the red zone. FIU probably will be able to get a couple of big plays downfield, but for the most part, I think you're going to see some containment and control from Charlotte. I know it's a random game, but do you have an opinion on it?
Yeah, I like what you said. Charlotte better than anybody I know, and that's good for the listeners to know too, because a lot of these games that aren't in the mainstream, like a Georgia versus Alabama, can go unnoticed, and it's hard to research all these programs, especially in college basketball when you have 350 programs. So I like the fact, first off, that Charlotte's gaining more than 125 yards, I think is what you said, over their opponents. And I don't think they've been outgained in any of their games so far. So that's kind of referred to as in the stats type of results. So you can have a team that won in the stats, meaning they gained more total offensive yards or had more rushing yards, or both rushing and passing yards, but lost the game.
Yeah.
If they had 5 turnovers, then that kind of negates their performance, because that's why they lost. But in this case, they have exceeded all their opponents. And you're right, the second half, they make adjustments at halftime. Whatever is said is the right thing, and they come out flying. Florida International is short in the depth category, I believe, on offense, if I remember right. They only had 4 returning starters. New quarterback under center. Charlotte has their quarterback from last year, and that is a large reason why they're doing so well.
Yeah.
When you have most of the offensive line, and in their case, I think 4 of the 5 came back, and the starting quarterback, that combination is really strong during the first half of the season. So here again, that's proven in the results.
Yeah, I kind of got notice of them last year, but they're 1-2, so people would kind of turn their nose up to their record. But their first game that they lost was 35-20 to Appalachian State, which Appalachian State, I mean, they won 12 games last year. So, and they're probably going to do that this year. Then they went on the road to play Florida Atlantic in a weird postponed COVID game for Florida Atlantic's first game of the year. They lost 21-17. I took the under in that game, so thank you, by the way, Charlotte. Yeah, I mean, they held a very powerful, potent Florida Atlantic offense down to 21 points. And then they put the drum on North Texas. So they took care of business in a spot that they should have. And then they were uber competitive and close with, the teams that they should have lost to. So this is a team where they should be, in the Panthers. And I like getting Charlotte in those spots. So that's kind of where my head's at on that one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The fact that they're 1-2 is more than offset by the fact that they're 3-0 against the spread.
Yeah, yep.
So that's a team that's performing better than expectations.
Yep. And
will continue to do so. There's no reason to think that it's a fluke.
Right.
They had 291 rushing yards last week at North Texas. Yep. That's a lot of rushing yards for anybody.
Yeah. One last nugget on Charlotte, and then we'll move on to actually tonight's game. We got a game tonight. I should have led with this one because it's a phenomenal game too. But Charlotte's one of, I think, 5 programs playing football right now that haven't allowed a single first quarter point. So there's that. So if you want to take a first quarter bet in this game, kind of get, the wink, wink, nudge, nudge, what I'm getting at, guys. So we'll move on to another game, and that's going to be, I've talked about it a little bit already, but it's just going to be phenomenal. It's a battle for first place in the Sun Belt, aka the Fun Belt. Got the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers going on the road, getting 7 points against the ULL. So that is the University of Louisiana Lafayette Ragin' Cajuns. And if you've listened to the podcast, you know that these are 2 of our more favorite college teams. They're exciting, they're different, and the Fun Belt's just a little bit different. Right off the bat, I jumped on Chanticleers. I took the points. I took them on the money line. I have a lot of confidence in them. Their quarterback is top 5 in a lot of impressive offensive metrics, as well as their defensive metrics. It's just, and not to mention, I think, the Ragin' Cajuns were down probably 15 guys on the injury report this week. Chances are they're going to probably lose 10 of those 5, and there's some key guys in there. Right now it's 7.5. So it's gone up a hook. Don't know why, but I like the Chanticleers here. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting because the Chanticleers, they just made the jump from FCS, and now they're trying to go 4-0 and beat, the top dog in their conference aside from Appalachian State.
Yeah, it is going to be a fun game to watch. It's one of the few times we see a team ranked from the Sun Belt as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I love saying the Ragin' Cajuns. I think that's the greatest mascot name in college football, at least right now.
Yep. I
mean, it just sounds fun to say. It makes you think of tailgating and having a good time too.
Yeah.
But they're 7.5 is really interesting to me as well. You have a ranked team playing, as you said, a team that's 3-0, but it's making their debut in the FBS. They have played a significantly weaker schedule so far than what the Ragin' Cajuns have played. And you mentioned the quarterback here.
His name is McCall. Can't remember his first name. I want to say Gabe.
Grayson McCall.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
By comparison, Levi Lewis is the Ragin' Cajun quarterback.
Yes.
No. Colby Suits is Louisiana Monroe. He leads the conference with 110 completions. Yeah. And then it drops off to Gunnar Watson. What a great first name that is for a quarterback from Troy, 80. So the conference has some arms here that are quite impressive. The passing yards is Colby Suits again.
Yeah.
That would be an obvious pick after what I just said. But Grayson McCall is 4th.
Yeah.
And just ahead of Levi Lewis. So they're 5 yards apart, 728, 723.
Yeah. The receivers that the both teams, Chanticleers and Raging Cajuns. I mean, you said it. I mean, speaking of a fun mascot to say, but the fact that I get to constantly just repeat Chanticleers and Raging Cajuns talking about a football game is kind of cool.
That reflects a high IQ too, I think.
It's a lot of
I definitely
focus.
couldn't do it.
So Elijah Mitchell, the running back for the Raging Cajuns, and Maribel for the Chanticleers, they there's just so much talent littered throughout the field on this game. It's very disciplined football on both sides, very coached or very well coached teams. And if you don't have anything to do tonight, guys, you've got to watch this game. It's an important one for the Fun Belt. And, a couple of undefeated teams going against each other on a Wednesday night game. We don't get that very often, even in regular college football seasons. So usually it's, the Akron Zips and, the Northern Illinois Huskies or something. But those are the two games I was most excited for. What's another one or two that you got on hand there, John?
Well, the one that I've really been focusing on this week is going to be more than likely a 10-star. And I don't want to hype this as me and my style is not to say game of the year or game of the month.
Well picked.
But if I was going to, the Georgia-Alabama game is the one that I can guarantee you I will watch every second of. And I historically love the Big Ten and the SEC conferences. So in this particular game, the SEC this year, the thing that has stuck out to me is that there's that common phrase, defense wins championships. Well, it suddenly dawned on me that fans win championships in the SEC because the scoring in the SEC conference it's at record levels. You have Alabama giving up 48, which tied Nick Saban's all-time most allowed in a game. And the other game that it's tied with was the Iron Bowl in 2018. So those two games are pretty close together in terms of time and seasons, given how long Saban's been coaching. But across the board, look at LSU. Granted, they lost a lot of defensive players. They lost a lot of offensive players to the NFL. But it's like any Saturday now, you're so used to them giving up 14 or 17 or less, and now they're giving up that per quarter.
Yeah.
And I'm totally convinced that it's the lack of fans in the stands that has caused it. And Muscamp, Florida's coach, was irate about the fact that there were fans at Texas A&M.
And now he wants
fans on the crybaby side.
Yeah, he wants fans for their game or something. Yeah, I saw that.
The Swamp I think seats 88,000.
Yeah. 25%.
And that gets very, very loud there. But,
yeah.
I think it was a factor at Texas A&M with the crowd noise, even though it wasn't a full stadium.
Yeah.
So in this particular game, it's clear to me that there's one defense in the SEC conference, and that's Georgia. If you look at the team metrics, head and shoulders above everybody else. And if there was ever a time that Georgia walks into Tuscaloosa and hands it to them, it would be now. So as a road underdog in the SEC between two opponents that are ranked in the top 10, you normally wouldn't think like this. You would always lean with the home team because that's how it goes. But this is a different year. Yeah. And Kirby Smart would also be the first former assistant of Nick Saban to beat him.
Yeah.
And
22-0, I think it is.
What's that?
He's 22-0, I think he is.
Yeah, 22-0 because he beat Kiffin last week.
Yep.
And they gave up. Kiffin's a great offensive mind. Yeah. You have to give it to him on that. And he has calmed down with his shenanigans. But to give up 48 to them was really startling. But there's a whole bunch of systems and metrics that support Georgia, and I could probably talk for an hour on this game. But I want to emphasize too that even though it gets released as a 10-star, doesn't mean that this is like a lock.
Right.
Okay. Over the course of a season, my dog Manny liked that comment.
He said he agreed.
But over the course of a season, these 10 stars will hit generally between anywhere from 67 to as high as 74% over the last 5 years of these plays, NFL, college football combined.
Yeah.
So I always remind my clients and the subscribers emphatically that think of it like this: it's not 67 or 74% chance to win; it's 26% to 38, or whatever that number is, 32% chance to lose.
Yeah.
So if I have 7 of these over the course of the season, I don't know if Georgia's going to cover this Saturday.
Yeah.
All my models say they will.
Yeah.
But I can never, in good conscience, go out and tell you, Devin, oh, this is a lock. I know they're going to win. Nobody knows anything, in my opinion. Sometimes you look, Monday morning you look like a genius, and other days you look like the fire hydrant, and your bets for the dog.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that point pretty clear. But I do like Georgia a ton.
Well, speaking of that, just to piggyback a tangent here. So I bowl. I bowl my men's league on Tuesday nights, right? And last Tuesday, I was like, I went to a table of some guys that, I know them, but I said, y'all want some good college bets this weekend, blah, blah, blah. So I gave them like 2 or 3, but of course the one they remember was the Louisville one. And the guy walked up to me at the bar as I was getting my second Truly. And he said, he was like, so, got any other hot takes that are gonna lose this week? He was like, and I was just like, I had nothing for him. I was like, honestly, I bet I could find one. I could. And he's like, yeah, no, that was bad. That was real bad. I'm like, I agree. Louisville stunk. He was like, yeah, I even put it in a teaser and they didn't even cover that. That was garbage. I was like, all right, cool. Thanks for your comment. So he kind of walked off.
I've been there, Devin. I also bowl, by the way, and I love golf, and I've kind of just learned that when somebody wants to pick my brain or get the free 10-star play, I just kind of deflect it somehow, put the emphasis on a pro team or whatever. But I have to admit this to you. You got me thinking here.
Uh-huh.
You know how I don't like parlays, right?
Sure.
I don't recommend them. Teasers are called that because
they're
exactly what the result is for the casino. So with that said, I was sitting with that Louisville game coming on, and I guess it was about 20 minutes before the start of the game. And I saw on Twitter that someone had put down $100,000 bet on the Lakers and the Yankees. And that was game 5 against Tampa Bay, and obviously the Heat in game 4, I guess.
4, yeah.
So I had this little account, and I thought, and this was after one IPA. One IPA caused me to go. I actually have to leave my house and walk up the street to get a proper signal so they can identify that I'm in the state that I'm in.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm near a border.
Yeah.
And I actually put down a money line 3-team $50 parlay on Georgia Tech, the Heat, and the Rays. All 3 dogs.
Wow.
And I fell asleep before the third one was over, but then I woke up in the middle of the night and I looked. I couldn't even believe it.
Before the third game or the third IPA?
Yeah, for me, it only took one to lose my discipline, but
Man, yeah, I saw your write-up on the Georgia Tech game. I think it was right before, right as the game was kicking off, and I was just kind of like, well, we'll see how this goes. So
that was surprising because Louisville was up 21-7. That's what you should have told your bowling friend.
Yeah,
you should have said, "Well, did you bet the first half line?"
I didn't tell him to put it in a teaser, and he didn't listen to my Charlotte pick. So, that's the way it goes sometimes as we put these things together and we unpack literally everything for people. You're going to have your casualties. So, but I'm okay with that. I think overall we picked the data pretty well and we see some things that normal people don't, not to toot our own horns, but check Tally Site, check the Action Network, check John's picks on, at John Ryan. So, proof is in the pudding or the pastry, whatever you like. John, do you have any other college games to One last one, or any sending off nugget to maybe discuss?
Let's take a look at college football again. SMU Tulane
Okay. Yep.
is a Friday night game.
Yep.
It's another one of those, I guess, fun to watch. It's not going to be as
Yep.
fun as tonight's game.
I already
but-
took the over in that one because I told myself I don't care what they're playing, what the spread is. I am never taking another under in a Tulane game. It's burned me. I'm 0 for 5 on them. So, yeah, over.
Well, that's a good point too, because again, with no fans, the over, and that's my explanation for it. I might be dead wrong with that, and maybe somebody else can tell me other reasons why, which I would love to hear. But without the fans and the way the over has been cashing, I don't know what it was in the NFL last week, but it was high.
Yep.
College football was high again. I don't know if there's been a week in college football as a whole where the under has actually won more than the over.
Right. And
you're going up against a Tulane team that can give up a boatload of points in a hurry.
Yeah.
With a ranked team. So that would be my last thought here is to take a look at the over and SMU to take care of business here.
If you want a deep dark horse quarterback for the Heisman, Shane Buechele. If he gets which I think SMU is still undefeated, which they had their seat. It was all weird because of COVID. But if he runs the table, wins that American Athletic Conference that has competitive teams like Cincinnati and Memphis, Central Florida, I mean, if he gets them into the top 6, if the dominoes fall the way they do, and yeah, I mean, I don't know what his odds are. He may not even be on the Heisman board, but I'd say a little sprinkle would be pretty exciting, and watch him Friday night. And if you guys like what you see on him, then make your sprinkle then. If he has 5 touchdowns and no interceptions, I say make a sprinkle. So.
Yeah, for sure. That's the reason they're 4-0 for the most part.
Yeah.
He's. I was just pulling up his stats here: 69% completions, 1,326 yards, 9.5 yards per attempt. There's a stat called adjusted yards per attempt.
Right.
I like it's taking yards plus 20 times touchdown, minus 45 times interceptions. It's used. I think it was created by a guy at Sports Reference, placed down in Philly. It has a huge database of stats. Also 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 170 QBR. So you're right. He should be on the list. And if they win this game big, if he's not lying now, then that might be something to do come Saturday morning. To check to see if he is lying for the Heisman. I like that idea.
Yeah. Like I said, super dark horse. But hey, we slowed it a little bit today. We unpacked a lot of stuff for the listeners and ourselves. Honestly, I think a lot of this, sorry guys, was for us in vain.
Yeah, I agree.
With that being said, it's unfortunately the part of the show where I got to kind of wrap it all together. But again, guys, we are brought to you by Manscaped. Hoopball Gaming is where you're going to find us. Don't forget to use Hoopball20 over at Manscaped. That's HOOPBALL20, or just Hoopball over at mybookie.ag. Again, hoop-ball.com presentation. I'm at DALE007. He's at John Ryan Sports 1. And again, guys, good luck tonight. Watch that Fun Belt game. We got some AL and NLCS action. And good luck and good hunting. Take care, guys.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.